it's Joanna Toch from Family Law Cafe with the Family Law Cafe podcast. Have you ever thought about divorce coaching? Do you know what it is? Today I've got an amazing divorce coach with me. She's called Chloe Oudiz. So Chloe, tell us about what you do.
Well, basically, I help people to divorce better.
Yeah.
So my role is to really help people throughout the divorce journey, from the very beginning until potentially years after they're divorced, but helping them prepare for every step of the process and make sure that they know what to expect, that they have all their ducks in a row, and that they can approach each situation step by step unemotionally as much as possible.
Detecting an accent there. So tell us about your background. Are you English, American, French? Tell me.
Very international background.
Yeah.
I'm half French, half American. I was born and raised in Paris. I went to law school in Paris, but I've been here now 17 years. So it's kind of a mishmash of different accents at this stage.
Yeah.
And that's also why I work a lot with international families.
Yeah.
Because I have this expatriate background myself. I have myself divorced while not being in my home country. So I know a lot of the challenges that come up in that kind of context.
Mm-hmm. And where were you educated? You said Paris.
Kind of a mix again.
Yeah.
So I went to law school in France.
Yeah.
But then I did my master's degree in New York. So across the ocean. And I moved to London to work. So I didn't study in the UK.
Okay. And so after college in America, in New York, what did you do at that stage? Straight into divorce coaching?
No,
Okay.
I had a winding path to divorce coaching. I worked for the World Bank for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And then I moved to London and worked in management consultancy. And I focused on change management. So actually there's a lot of overlap with divorce coaching. But this was change in the context of mergers and acquisitions. So different realm.
Just explain that in case people don't know. What does change management mean?
It means helping the people in the organization adapt to the change.
Okay.
So usually it's new leadership that's put in place,
Yeah.
new ways of working, sometimes new technology, and it's supporting the business in that transition.
Okay.
So
could that
that's
mean
what
that
it's
you're
all
telling them they'll be fired?
No, I'm not on the HR. I wasn't on the HR side of things.
Yeah, okay.
There were sometimes
So change of culture.
Change of culture,
Yeah.
change of leadership, of ways of working,
Yeah.
and just helping people through that overall challenge of change, of accepting change, even if you think it's for the best and you know it's for the best, it's still difficult to change. We have this status quo bias that makes it very difficult to envisage what life can look like after the change. And that's part of what I see in divorce as well.
So, but at that time, it hadn't entered your thoughts, had it? You know, obviously that was a great training for you, you know, how people adapt to change in their workplace. So how did you step from that into what you do now? Because you're full-time, aren't you? You're a divorce coach full-time. Yeah.
So it kind of happened organically. I didn't actually know what divorce coaching was when I got divorced. I wish I had. But what happened is because my children were very young when I got divorced, a lot of my friends were not quite there, or some of them got there, some of them thankfully didn't. But over time, as people around me started contemplating divorce or moving ahead with it, they came to me because I was usually the one divorcee they knew. And they were originally just asking questions, you know, who did you use as a lawyer? Where did you divorce? How did this work? How did that work? And little by little, it started taking more and more of my time. These people I was helping were sending me their friends, people I didn't even know. And little by little, I needed more and more of my time to dedicate to this. And I was really enjoying it. And I realized two things. First of all, that I was getting so much satisfaction out of helping people directly and seeing the immediate impact that I could have on their lives. And second of all, that there was really a gap in the services that are available and the support that people get. And I think there's an unfair expectation that your lawyer is going to do it all. And that's not a reasonable expectation. It's not fair to expect the lawyer to do that. Also, they're not trained to do everything. They can't also be a therapist and a financial advisor and a coach. They're there to advise on legal matters. And I found a lot of people needed other support. They went beyond the legal elements and they just didn't know where to go. And friends and family might be very well intentioned and helpful, but they're just not professionals and they're not educated enough to be able to give you good advice.
Yeah, and they're not objective, are they? So you can have, sometimes people say, well, I've got a, cousin, he's a lawyer, he's helping me, but, that could not work because of, the perspective that person will have, be part of the family. And obviously you were a friend, but not part of their family, so you could be more objective. But tell me, when you went through divorce, was it all plain sailing? Was it difficult? How did you find it?
Well, so my experience with divorce was dual, really, and it's partly from that experience that I'm able to advise people, and my focus is very much on helping people divorce in a peaceful way, limiting conflict as much as possible, and that's because I experienced both versions of divorce. So I was divorced from the father of my children about 10 years ago. And it went very amicably. It was one of those dreamlike scenarios where within a few months, we got everything sorted. We shared a lawyer, because at the time you could share a lawyer. We got divorced in France. And it cost us very little money. And he moved down the street. The kids were going back and forth. It all went splendidly, I guess, in as much as a divorce can. What happened is that a few years later, circumstances evolved and he moved abroad. And communication completely broke down. And because he had moved abroad, we had to renegotiate a lot of our arrangements with regards to child maintenance, to child arrangements, because clearly he wasn't around the corner anymore. And the communication being completely broken meant that we did everything through lawyers. Mm-hmm. And I saw the cost, both emotional and money-wise, that entailed. We spent over a year negotiating new arrangements, which originally we'd spent 2 or 3 months on our original divorce. And especially, it caused so much stress. I felt it myself. I mean, it was very nerve-wracking. Going to hearings, people think it's going to be your day in court, your big moment of glory. It's not a pleasant experience. And also, it impacted our co-parenting relationship. It took me years to be able to just look him in the eye again and to be able to collaborate with him again, because there was so much resentment, and I'm sure on both sides. So I really saw the difference between how it went when we were actually able to collaborate, to communicate, to work together as a team centered around our children, and how it worked when we completely stopped speaking to each other.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? The same people, the same, not so different a situation. Obviously, you've emphasised you're in different countries, so it was made more complex by that. I mean, what do you think? I mean, looking back, do you think you could have behaved any differently, or or was it inevitable that would happen? Were there any other choices you could have made?
I think I would have definitely benefited from having a divorce coach. Mm-hmm. I would have liked to have someone who was cool-headed and who could help me make those decisions. Mm. I had a lawyer who was incredibly helpful, and my parents who were incredibly biased. And so, as much as everybody was trying to support me through that, I needed somebody kind of external who could have helped me to think things through objectively, look at the big picture as well, try and get past my immediate feelings and think about the long-term impact of the decisions I was making. So I think I would have definitely benefited from taking more time to think through what I was doing, what my strategy was, and what ultimately my objectives were through all of that.
And when did you ever, I mean, you've talked about, was it after that people came to you, after knowing that you'd been through quite a lengthy procedure? Presume they'd heard about it, I suppose.
Yes, I'm sure. Yeah. I'm sure they did. Gossip goes around fast. Yeah. But no, it was before that even that I was already getting people coming to see me. Yeah. Because it was such a successful divorce, and because there was this perception that it had gone very smoothly and people wanted to have that. Nobody enters divorce thinking, I want to go to war and spend half of my savings on this. So I think that might have been one of the triggers that made people come to me originally. Mm.
And were you then, how long was it after you were helping people that you thought this could actually be a thing, rather than just giving that help? I mean, how long was that period?
Little by little, it started developing. And I've always had a great interest in psychology and mentoring, coaching. Those were always elements of my work that I enjoyed a lot, and that I did, with my colleagues. I was a mentor to several people in my office, and that was really the part that I enjoyed, because you have a direct impact on people. You can help them. You see the difference you make there and then. So that was always something that triggered a lot of excitement in me and a lot of satisfaction. But originally it was just for the pleasure of helping others. And it's as I noticed that it was just getting to be there was more and more demand really coming my way that I hadn't anticipated, that I wasn't seeking out at that stage. And so I think, it was a gradual journey towards taking the leap. It was a scary leap to take when you've been employed your whole life and, with a steady income, starting my own business. I'd never run my own business, but I've never looked back.
What training did you do, if any?
Yeah, so there's a lot of training. The challenge with divorce coaching is that it's not a regulated profession.
Yeah.
So my word of caution to people is always make sure that the person you're working with has training, and that it's proper training. It's not an online course that lasted half a day. I did the CDC certified divorce coach training, which is the oldest one. It started in the US. It's been around for maybe 30 years.
Yeah.
And the reason I chose it is because it is the most established, and it's recognized by the American Bar Association. It's just very, very, very clearly established in this field. And I liked a lot that it had practical elements to it. So we did a lot of mentor coaching and peer coaching, and it was not just the theory of it. So for me, that was a really helpful opportunity to kind of materialize and pull together all the knowledge I'd accumulated just through my own experience and make sure that I had that additional layer of expertise in that professional recognition for the skills that I bring to the table.
And do they continue with mentoring? Do you have someone that you can reach out to?
Yes, so that's one of the brilliant things. So first of all, I'm a mentor now, and I help train new cohorts of divorce coaches. But also we have CPD, so we have to continue training. There's a code of ethics. So there's a real structure around it. And one of the wonderful things I got out of it is this network of other divorce coaches everywhere in the world with whom I get together regularly, and we share experiences and discuss challenges we're facing. And it's a brilliant community to be part of.
So you had your legal training, which you'd used in a different area, as you say, mergers, change management, to business law. So that has a similarity with, in going into the personal sphere. And when you take on someone new, how do they come to you, first of all? How do they hear about you?
It's a good question. And I've been trying to nail it down to one thing, and unfortunately it isn't one thing.
Yeah.
I do get a lot of referrals. So I work with an extensive network of professionals, solicitors, barristers, family mediators, financial advisors, because it is really about creating a team around the person who's divorcing. Yeah. So we send people to each other, because I will have clients who say, well, I don't have a solicitor yet, or I want to speak to a financial advisor, and I can connect them with people that I know, that I've vetted, and that I know are going to help them in a constructive way. And so I think that is why they send people my way as well. I also get people through word of mouth of previous clients, and randomly from social media every once in a while.
When they come to you, do you have a session to see whether you can work well together?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I think a lot of coaches do that because it is a very personal relationship.
Yeah.
So I always offer a free introductory call. People can come in with no strings attached. They don't feel like they have to make any decisions before that. And it's an opportunity for me to hear their story and make sure that I'm the right person for them. There will be cases where I feel like actually somebody else can serve them better and I refer them to someone else. But it's a good way for me to check that, but also for them to get a feel for who I am and whether they trust me, they feel comfortable speaking to me.
Yeah.
I, of course, answer any questions around pricing and how I work. So it's a really good opportunity to just make sure it's a good fit, because it is presumably a long-term relationship, and it's very much based on trust.
Yeah, I think it's so important that we don't take on people that we just can't provide the right service for them.
Yeah.
And just I always try and reflect on that. It's just not a question of people coming to us. If the way we work isn't right for them, it really is just not right, because it's such a big part of your life, and you've got to work with someone you're really confident with and you understand how they work. People have come to us and they've been working with, for example, collaborative solicitors, and I've then said, do you realise you're working with a collaborative solicitor? And maybe the other party isn't making disclosure, and to me that's really unsuitable.
Yeah.
And I don't know how then they've been left in, doing maybe in 9 months or so, when no one's really noticed that this case, it's not a good fit.
Yeah.
That's why I set up Family Law Cafe, because I think that there's so many options.
There are, and they're very overwhelming to people.
Yeah.
That's usually one of the first sessions I have with clients. A lot of my clients come to me in the very early days of the divorce.
Yeah.
They're usually just at that stage where they've decided to divorce, but they don't know where to start.
Yeah.
And they're usually quite scared about detonating a war or just doing the wrong thing and things going off in the wrong direction. And so, but the first session will often be around sharing information about different NCDR options, how much they typically cost, how long they typically take, and just making sure that they understand that there are so many options beyond litigation. It isn't just discussing things over the kitchen table or going to the final hearing.
No. NCDR is non-court dispute resolution.
It is.
And now people have to, not only do they have to get a certificate, say they've found out about mediation, when they go to court, they've got to fill out a form to explain why they are not using non-court dispute resolution. So absolutely not just mediation, or that, there's arbitration, which is really important. People don't know enough about. There is collaborative law, which can work really well in the right case, where there's a lot of knowledge and trust and people decide they're not going to go to court. So what do you specialise in? What's your area?
So I do a lot of preparation for any one of those options. Actually, divorce coaching is also a form of NCDR. In the US, the American Bar Association has it listed as one of the alternative dispute resolution options. Here it's implied in the FPRs.
Yeah, I don't think it is here, is it?
No, it's not spelled out, but it says, and other similar. That, in my mind, at least encompasses divorce coaching. But it really is about helping people to navigate whichever stream is the right one for them. So I do a lot of preparation for mediation, because I think in the vast majority of cases, it's always worth trying mediation first before deciding on anything else.
But just let me stop you there. What does that mean, preparation for mediation?
It's preparation on all different aspects.
Yeah.
In general, divorce is a negotiation. And my training is in negotiation skills and helping people to approach it, first of all, with the right mindset, but also with the right preparation, knowing how to communicate effectively with the other person, and just basic negotiation strategies.
Yeah.
So you can't enter mediation without understanding what there is to divide between the two spouses, without knowing what to expect from the mediation process, and without understanding what success looks like for you and for the other side. You need to have that clarity because you need to have an objective. Otherwise, you're entering into a negotiation without any clear end in sight.
This is massive, isn't it? Because the government wants people to go to mediation, and people want to go to mediation, but pretty much everyone I speak to, they say, no, because he won't mediate. They always say, she won't mediate. And I said, how do you know that? But I think it is much more than that, because people don't do this in real life. And it's a very scary thing to go in. I mean, who would really want to do that? And I can say to them, the person's very experienced, that, they will, you will meet the mediator beforehand. But I do wonder if it's realistic to expect people just to enter mediation knowing that, perhaps they've probably had hosts of arguments. Let's face it, they're getting divorced. They're going to have arguments. Probably know the other side is much better, and they see mediation as an argument probably and think, well, that person's much better than me in negotiating. I'll have no chance.
Yeah, and I hear that a lot. People who say, my husband or my wife is so charming, the mediator's going to take their side.
Yeah, that's a big one, isn't it?
And that's part of that preparation is understanding that the mediator is not a judge.
No.
They're not there to take sides. They're absolutely neutral. And it doesn't matter if anybody's charming. They're not there to decide for you. So they could think that the wife or the husband are 100% right. It doesn't matter what they think, because it doesn't have an impact on the outcome. But people don't always understand that, and so they get worried that they're going to be the underdog, and it feels less protected, I think, than a court of law. Yeah, because they don't have a solicitor.
Well, it is. I mean, I as a lawyer have done roundtable meetings, and they are really fast because. We're very used to, as lawyers, setting out our position. We might do our pleadings, we present our case. If you have a roundtable meeting, things can move really quickly. Yeah. I mean, it can be really exciting. Suddenly you think, no, it's not going to settle. I can remember doing one years and years ago. And then suddenly, I think it was, we did something a bit theatrical, like, okay, we're going to go out and come back. And then put something forward, and then suddenly, boom, 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 boom. And everyone was so relieved and we sorted it out. And we were so far apart right until about 80% of the way in, and just in that last 20 minutes people realised this is our one chance. But it's very, very fast, and going into mediation, I'm sure people would worry, what if I agreed something and afterwards I thought I shouldn't do that.
And again,
scary.
understanding what to expect.
Yeah.
That it's not legally binding, that it's, everything's being discussed without prejudice. It's important for people to understand that because they don't really know what they can say, what they can't say, what's going to be, held against them.
Yeah.
So that's part of the education piece that needs to happen up front. And I very often see what you were saying earlier, people who rush into mediation
Yeah.
and just aren't prepared at all. I see people going to mediation who don't even have a schedule of assets.
Well, that's another big one. So going into mediation, one party not making disclosure. And so, I'm just thinking aloud here, but if the government want to make sure more people go to mediation, which they do, because obviously for them, that's a cheap alternative and it's a better alternative if it works. But maybe more thought needs to go into helping people prepare for mediation.
I think so. I think there's a little bit a need for more information, really. The good news is, 10 years ago, very few people knew about family mediation.
Yeah.
And that's changed. I can see pretty much every one of my clients knows, if they know one NCDR option, they know mediation.
Yeah.
But they don't know the nitty-gritty.
No.
So they've heard of it.
Yeah.
They don't know what it entails. They don't know how it works. They don't know how to prepare for it. And that's where having a coach can be really helpful because I can just help them be prepared for every step. Make sure that they have all their ducks in a row, that they've understood what to expect, and that they're basically entering every situation with their eyes wide open. The divorce isn't happening to them. They're in control of every step.
Yeah. And of course, there are different forms of mediation, aren't there?
Yes, which is brilliant. That's another beauty of mediation. You can make it your own, really.
Yeah, again, coming to mind, a round table meeting. It was at my chambers years ago and the other side came in, but they wouldn't come into the same room. I was like, it's a round table meeting. But they just stayed in their room. And obviously it was shuttle mediation. It's fine, but they just called it round table mediation. I don't know why they didn't call it shuttle. We weren't expecting. We just thought it was a bit silly, really. So that's mediation. Do you deal with any, what cases do you not deal with?
I don't deal with abuse.
Yeah.
And the reason for that, as we were saying earlier, is I'm not trained to help people in domestic abuse situations.
Yeah.
And I don't want that responsibility, nor do I think it's fair for me to take on that responsibility and help people through something that can be dangerous to them. So anybody who has that kind of situation, I will refer them to other divorce coaches that I know who have that specialty. And that's part of the beauty of divorce coaching is there's so many different niches.
Yeah.
And so my network also includes other divorce coaches.
Yeah.
Because if there's one who has a specialty that's particularly relevant to someone I'm speaking to, I want them to speak to the right person.
Yeah. I love you for that. You know what you're doing, you know what you're good at, and you stick to it, and it's amazing. And you do a lot of international work, don't you?
I do. And, it's partly because of my own international background. But also, I just find it really tough to divorce when you're not at home. It's always hard to divorce. It's
Tell me about that.
My time.
Yeah.
And you're far from your family.
Yeah.
You're far from your traditional support network. For a lot of people, you're in a country that speaks a different language to yours. Yeah. I work with a lot of French people because I coach in French as well. It's also a completely different legal system. I mean, every country has its own laws, but France is a codified legal system. Yeah. People show up in the UK and they expect there to be a rule book somewhere that says how things are meant to happen. And they don't understand that there's no equivalent to the régime matrimonial in France that dictates exactly how assets are divided. So there's a cultural translation that needs to happen as well. So just, from the offset, it's difficult. And in a lot of cases, one of the two in the couple is the expat and the other's at home. And so there's an imbalance from the very start. And then, of course, there's a lot of legal challenges that come up when you're divorcing abroad. First of all, where do you divorce? Which jurisdiction is applicable? But then, you'll have properties in different places. There's tax implications, immigration implications sometimes. Co-parenting might be long distance. It might be across oceans. Organizing co-parenting is a very tricky one and one that I spend a lot of time with my clients on to help them in building that parenting plan for a long distance relationship, making sure that the children can still be in contact with both parents and that both parents can play their role as parental responsibility owners in this context.
And do you work with just one party or can you work with two?
It depends.
Yeah.
Mostly with one. A lot of people come to a coach because they want someone in their corner and somebody who's going to help them. But I do have couples who come to me, especially around the child arrangements and especially when it comes to speaking to the children. So I do a lot of preparation for difficult conversations. Sometimes it's helping my client speak to their spouse and tell them about their intent to divorce. But a lot of the time it's also helping the couple to announce to the children their decision to divorce and make sure that that goes as well as it can.
I didn't ask you, and I should have done, but I'll ask you now. What's the benefit of coaching in this context? And what does it involve, really?
Yeah.
What are describe that?
I mean, it's literally a session where we sit down together and we talk. Sometimes it's on Zoom, sometimes it's in person, depending where people are. But it's a conversation with an informed professional. So I like to describe myself as a thinking partner. I'm there to help people through their thinking to make the right decisions. Of course, I share professional and expert advice, but I'm not telling people what to do. So in that sense, it's a very different service to that of a solicitor. Coaching is helping people reach their own conclusions. I challenge them. I present different perspectives. I share examples of things I've seen go right or wrong in the past. But ultimately, it is my clients who make decisions and who are the drivers of their divorce. And that's really important because it really is about empowering the person to make the decisions that are the right ones for them. And they just need to be right for them, even if I don't agree with them.
Yeah. And do you work with the solicitor as well, and do you go to meetings with them, or do you train the person you're working with, and do they deal with that?
It's a mix, but I do meet, as I said earlier, it's very much about creating a team, and a lot of the solicitors I work closely with are exactly in that mindset. And so we work together to help the person on all the different dimensions of their divorce. And the more connected we are, the better we can support the person who's going through divorce. So I will very regularly attend client meetings with lawyers. I will attend all kinds of meetings with financial planners. I will help them sometimes through mediation as well. If somebody wants me to be with them during the mediation, even though I'm not speaking, I'm there for moral support. And
are you allowed to be there?
I'm allowed. Okay. It depends on the mediator.
Yeah.
Some of them will only allow it if the other person also has a coach.
Yeah.
And it also depends if we're online or in person. There's a lot of different dimensions, but it's basically up to the mediator.
Yeah.
But that can be very helpful for people, just knowing that there's someone next to them who can help them. And sometimes my contribution is just to stop the conversation when I feel it going off the rails, or to say, hey, can we take a few minutes to talk about this offline before we resume? And that's all that needs to happen. But for a lot of people, it's very comforting because it's, as you said, quite scary sometimes to enter mediation.
And I'm guessing that because of the sort of work that you do, most of it isn't contested in court. Most of it comes to a settlement.
That's
just
the
sent
objective.
to court. That's the objective.
Yeah, so the vast majority of my clients come to me saying, I'm trying to divorce as amicably as possible.
Yeah.
We just need help.
Yeah.
And so it's really about assisting people and helping them leverage all the different tools that are out there to achieve that out of court. Now, I do have some clients who end up in court or who are already in court by the time they come to see me.
Yeah.
In which case I help them with managing the emotions, the preparation for the hearings. But the objective is to not get to that point.
And is the advantage, or one of the advantages in having you there, is that there will be issues that they might think they should discuss with their lawyer, but really it's better to discuss with you.
Well, there's certainly a cost saving there.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
So, what I always tell my clients is, you need a lawyer. You need to know what the law says. To enter a negotiation, you need to understand what the best and the worst alternative are to a negotiated agreement. If you can't find a deal, what is likely to happen in court? You need to understand what the court is looking for in a fair agreement. So all of that is required, and you need that legal expertise. But the point that I always make is that it's not about using the lawyer as your chief negotiator. It's about leveraging them as a legal consultant, somebody who's there to tell you how the law works and what to expect, really, but not to lead the negotiation for you. And that's really the distinction that I make.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, as a lawyer. I've really often had it said to me, I'm a barrister, but I've worked in solicitors' firms, and I can remember people saying, what shall I do in this situation? I have to say, you've got to make your decision. Don't worry, as your lawyer, I'll make sure it's fine. Yeah. But, what do you want to do? Let's say an example, shall I leave my job? Or how is it going to look? How's it going to look if I leave my job? How's it going to look in my case? I'm like, what do you want to do? Yeah. I'll make it look fine.
Yeah.
So as a lawyer, we'll find the answer, but we're not there to tell people what to do.
That's true.
And much as we might want to, I suppose. I mean, I would just tell them all the options, but they can. I'm thinking if they have a divorce coach, they can work that through with you. They've got more time, got more agency. You're going through the possibilities, and that's really how it should be, I think.
Yeah, it's about helping them explore all those options.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, with international divorce, one of the very common issues I see is people saying, I don't know if I should go back to my home country. Because there's a temptation, of course, to go back to someplace familiar with your family around. And that's a very big debate. And people often feel that they have to make that decision there and then. And so that is not a legal decision.
No.
It's a personal decision.
Yeah.
It has an implication on the legal aspects. But first and foremost, the person has to decide whether it's the right decision for them and for their children. And so making that decision is something that I can assist them with, and that we can spend a lot of time discussing from various perspectives, thinking about what will it mean in terms of your career, will it mean for your children, what will that look like, what kind of support will you get, where will you live, is your quality of life going to improve because you're moving back, all of those different factors to try and get a full picture of whether it's the right decision for them or not. And again, I'm not telling them it's their decision, it's their life, but I help guide them through those scenarios to a point where they feel that they're comfortable with the decision they've made.
And I'm guessing that if you do that work and it's detailed, it might be that it's more acceptable to the other party, because I think those cases are incredibly difficult because, again, from, the lawyer's point of view, when the court hears, mother wants to go back and take, 2 children, 6 and 8, to Moldavia or, wherever, and they've been brought up in England, from a legal perspective, it's, it's a really binary decision the court has to make. But and I've been in cases, years ago, when the genuine reasons to move, and ended up in court really sort of negotiating it down that the father's going to have this amount of contact. And, I think if with working with someone like you, they're going to get a much more detailed, multifaceted package and discussions. And it hopefully would mean that even if it's tough for the parent who has to accept the children are moving, it might be more acceptable, because going to court is just such an exhausting and difficult and uncertain way of proceeding.
Absolutely. And that's why I always tell people this is really, if there's one item you should try and negotiate on, this is it, because it's so binary.
Yeah.
And trying to find an agreement where both parents can comfortably agree to whatever setup they're putting in place is really important. And that's where those negotiation skills come in incredibly importantly, and we're understanding the psychology of the other side. What is it that really matters to them? What are their real fears here, and how can we address those? So I work with my clients to develop a proposal for the co-parenting. How is that going to work? In practice, who's going to pay for plane tickets? Who's going to keep the passports? All of those things that are part of that picture that they need to paint to the other side, so that they can actually understand how this will work in practice, because it tends to be a bit of a knee-jerk reaction. You want to take my kids away? No.
Yeah.
But actually, if you can describe it in a way that makes sense, and especially a way that has the children's well-being at the center, and you're able to really articulate a life for your children that is incredibly good for them, then of course the other side's more likely to say yes, and there's a lot more opportunity to find an agreement.
Yeah, much better for the children too, I'm sure. I know you've got a book that you've just written. Well done.
Thank you.
We had a chat some time ago. I'm writing a book too. I haven't even started. Oh dear. Oh, have a conversation again. And so what's the name of the book?
Don't Screw Up Your Divorce.
Don't Screw Up Your Divorce. You got there for what a great title. Tell me about the book.
Well, so the book is exactly to address what I was saying earlier. People who are just on the brink of making the decision, or have just made the decision, but don't know where to start. Mm-hmm. And it's a very scary time in people's lives, because everything's about to change. Yeah. You don't know at all what to expect. Yeah. And you're kind of leaping off into the unknown. And so that's where having somebody by your side makes a big difference. So I structured the book around the 8 most common questions that people have, based on my experience at that point. So, questions like, how do I choose a lawyer? Can I afford to divorce? How do I tell my spouse? How will I tell my children? All of those big concerns that make it really scary to proceed, and keep people a little bit like a rabbit in the headlights. So the point was to create a practical guide, and I've built into it a lot of anecdotes around some of my clients, some of my experiences, to really bring it to life and to help people avoid those big mistakes. So I've actually got boxes throughout with mistake number 1, number 2, number 3, and how to avoid those mistakes so that people can feel that they are in control of the situation, they know what to expect, and by the time they kick things off, they're ready.
It's just coming out now, isn't it? How do
is.
people get hold of it?
It's available on Amazon.
Of course it is.
Easy enough.
Perfect. Don't screw up your divorce.
Absolutely.
But I'm going to ask you to sit there because my next guest is Stephanie Camilleri. She is the ADHD advocate. I'm sure that she's going to have some very smart questions for you. So
Perfect.
I'll introduce you.
Hi, I'm Stephanie and I'm the founder of the ADHD Advocates. So we provide ADHD coaching to individuals with ADHD to help them understand their unique brain wiring, kind of where their ADHD is getting in the way, and helping them kind of navigate through those challenges to leverage their strengths and be able to fulfill their potential, their goals. And we also train organizations, corporates and schools in terms of helping them look through that same ADHD lens so they can better support ADHDers to be able to reach their goals, essentially. Yeah. What are you doing?
That's a brilliant service, first of all.
Thank you.
I'm a divorce coach. So I help people to divorce without tearing each other apart.
Wow.
So effectively, I teach them conflict de-escalation techniques, negotiation techniques.
Oh, wow.
And I help them prepare for every step of the process so that the divorce goes as smoothly as possible. There was one lady I had on my podcast, and she was saying it's 85% of couples who have children with special needs end up divorcing.
85%, yeah. I mean, they used to, when we were taught at ADCA, so I trained with the ADHD Coaching Academy in America, in the US.
Yeah, I trained in the US too.
Yeah. Well, you sound.
Yes, my mom's American.
Oh, so where did you grow up?
In Paris. So my dad is French and my mom's American.
Oh, wow. Like Fabienne. Do you know Fabienne Fredrickson?
No.
Boldheart?
No.
She's she's Canadian and lives in Paris.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what does she do?
So she's like, she's also a coach, but for like women, growing their businesses. Yeah, she's fantastic. Have a look, Boldheart.
Okay, I'll look at that.
Fabienne Fredrickson. She's fantastic. She's very good at inspiring women to like, change their mindsets and like have an abundance kind of mindset and really push the limits in terms of, their potential and their growth. Yeah, because she very much believes in empowering women and helping them be, independent financially. Because, in order to avoid
the key.
The kind of situation, because there's so many women that are unable to leave, right?
That's exactly right. Or who leave but have no clue how to even manage their household finances.
Oh, God, completely.
Completely lost.
Yeah. No, I remember.
Really scary. It makes it, it's already scary to divorce in general, but if you don't even know how to pay your bills, it gets really, really intimidating.
No, it does. And actually, that sometimes can be a way in terms of the coercive and controlling.
Financial control.
Yeah, exactly. Less likely, right, that the woman is going to be able to leave because they've been disempowered.
Yeah. And the men will usually use that as a threat as well.
Yeah. I really feel for those women that just don't have the financial means to get away. I've
got 2 daughters, and that is the one thing I'm teaching them.
Yeah.
Stand on your own 2 feet. Don't wait for Prince Charming to pay for everything.
Oh, God, no. No, be independent. And for me, it's very much, and this is what, because it's, there's a massive vulnerability for women and men, and there are some men as well that are really vulnerable to abuse that have, with ADHD. Because of the people pleasing, and weak working memory, so very much more apt, more likely to get gaslit and not be able to fight their corner, you see. So they are very vulnerable.
Yeah.
And so what I'm doing now, I've very much brought it into my coaching. So when I'm coaching, particularly the young girls, young women, it's all about helping them like expect more, set a higher standard, be aware of kind of, what needs they have and, whether they're being met and learning how to ask for them to be met, expect for them to be met, all that type of thing. That's really cool. I wish someone taught me.
I think it's kind of awareness that's only starting now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Up until even just 10 years ago, people didn't really have that concept of special needs and needing to adapt to somebody who has different ways of learning and operating.
No, yeah. And I guess then that's what causes so much of the the conflict, like I guess with the divorce too. Yeah, when there's, special needs there. Usually not always, again, I don't want to generalize, usually the mother, depends, I guess, who's got primary care of the kids, but they sense there's something different. And so, when a lot of the conflict is born out of one parent trying to do the neurotypical way of enforcing and the other one just no, this is only causing damage, and then there's that pushback, and then then that other parent thinks, oh, you're not with me, or you're not, how can I parent? Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's already, anyway, when you're co-parenting, it's, there's different parenting styles, right? So
yeah.
There's going to be different views of how to handle different situations. But even more, because there's so many bigger decisions to make when you have an atypical, a neurodivergent child, it creates that much more tension and that much more differences in the approach.
Yeah, I'm sure you see this a lot where there may be one parent that really does feel that an assessment's needed, that kind of treatment, that support's there, but the other parent's against it, and then they take, that parent to court. In the meantime, this child that really does have needs, and that, those needs need to be met, and they're struggling. And then the parent is just getting completely taken to the, what they call it, the laundry,
cleaners.
Yeah, taken to the that's it. That's the one. Word finding difficulties. Yeah, taken to the cleaners.
Trying to defend their kid.
Yeah, when they need exactly. Like you're trying to help these kids. Like the divorce process when you've got neurodiverse children. Like in my case, I told you my youngest was school refusing. I was literally in the middle of these massive meltdowns. When I got served with yet another application, like literally, I'm not joking. Like I was kind of, trying to dodge the, blows. And I was just checking my email as you do. I think this is from my legal days, not being able to stop looking at my emails, but also it helped me calm down. It just helps me ground if I'm, something that's kind of predictable and calm and something that I can do, as opposed to be out of control. Yeah, no, I know. But like and that's when I saw that. My ex-husband had, served another thing on me.
Oh, goodness.
And so you can imagine, here I am just trying to, do what's best for my child, who's massively struggling, but my attention, is being...
And you're trying to fight wars on all fronts.
Oh, like
it's
the main...
emotional resilience that's really difficult.
I'm too resilient. This is the other thing, is that the more, and I kind of help people with ADHD kind of do this, just because you can doesn't mean you should. Just because you're so resilient does not mean you should stay in the situation and put up with it, because they are too resilient.
Yeah.
Resilience isn't always a good thing.
No, it's not. I mean, it helps you survive, but you don't want to be surviving. You want to be thriving.
That's it. Exactly. Yeah. So that is, I mean, I wish I had have met you 2.5 years ago in my own divorce. I mean, particularly with the clients that we serve, there are a lot of very opposite of amicable divorces by the very nature of ADHD. Like it's, as we were talking, there's so much more incidents of divorce with ADHD for many reasons. And it can be extremely isolating for people suffering with ADHD in these kind of situations.
Sure.
And it makes all the difference to have a coach, because, being a coach myself, but particularly someone that's navigated and knows how to help them communicate their way through, because communication is actually one of the biggest challenges for ADHDs.
Yeah. And it's one of the big keys to a successful divorce. So it must be that much more challenging.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I definitely think we should have a chat later. We could definitely do with some of your services because it is, it's very much make or break, in terms of, because with ADHD, if you're divorcing, chances are your partner's got ADHD, but also your children, obviously. And that's a big reason why I guess the divorces happen in the first place. Yeah. But trying to navigate divorce and also meet the needs of your children with, ADHD and or autism, it can break you.
Yeah, it's definitely an additional challenge to contend with.
Yeah, and it's not something that you should do alone. Like we're always, at ADHD Advocate, we're always talking about like leaning into interdependence. Now's not the time to try and do it all yourself. Like do not do it. Like lean into support. And definitely at times like divorce, you need your friends, you need your family, you need a coach, someone, again, that someone that's not subjective.
Yes.
So important, isn't it? Because you're getting all these different viewpoints, and it can be really, you're already overwhelmed as an ADHDer and have trouble making decisions. So to have someone on your side that's hearing you and that can help you come to that decision, but it's your decision.
Exactly.
Is huge. So
that's exactly what coaching is all about.
Yeah.
Helping people to make the right decisions for themselves.
That's it. Yeah.
And it's guiding them through their thought process, helping them consider different perspectives and really think through what is the right decision for them with somebody who's not trying to push their own agenda.
So true. Yeah. No, definitely. Let's have a chat. I'd love to kind of be able to signpost you to some of our clients.
That'd be great.